be late, but we be starting on time because we do have a time commitment, so. One more minute. Hey, let's start. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and then if everyone would please stand for the flag salute. Please.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sorry.
I'd like to welcome everyone here. I kind of put together a little thing just in case, because I know we have so many people interested in our meetings. And I'm just going to read one thing. The people have delegated the authority to lead, manage, and operate their school district to an elected board of directors. And the law insists the people remain informed of what they have created. So thank you all for being here. I really appreciate that. So, do we have any announcements? Any announcements?
Just sharing on behalf of the PTO, the music in LA is scheduled for Saturday, May 11th. Less than a month.
That will be exciting. We know how wonderful those things are. So I have one thing. I think that we will be having a suggestion box. And so I don't know if it's here tonight, but it will be out soon if it's not, so that if you have suggestions and you're more comfortable, you can just stick a little card in the suggestion box. I can't tell you exactly where it's going to be at, but we will have one. And it might be back there later, or it might, oh, there it is right there. It is pretty little. You might have to write 2 cards if you have a lot to say. All right, thank you. Are there, Ford, are there any corrections or additions to the agenda? Does anyone have anything, Bob?
I do have one. Yeah, under action item C, the approval of the summer school contracts. They're not ready yet.
Okay, so we'll take that off.
Yes,
Okay.
striking action item C.
Any other corrections or additions? I have a few. Under item, let's see. I would like to insert policy and procedure number 5253 as number 4A, which would immediately then follow public comment. And in addition, I would like to add policy 5253 to the first reading of policies, which is item 11. Then I would also like to add policy 1620 to the first reading. Both of these policies will come up as discussion during our meeting. So there's those 2 additions.
Just a point of clarification.
Yes.
What did you ask? Where did you ask that first item to be added?
I asked to add policy and procedure number 5253
Mhm.
as 4A, so it would immediately follow public comment. And then as well, adding it to the list of the first reading of policies.
So we don't have copies of those?
They were on board docs.
And
Yes.
there is
I
a
had
copy.
copies if you didn't.
There is a copy in the back of your folder.
So are there any other, corrections or additions to the agenda? If there are not, I would, accept a motion to approve the agenda as corrected.
Also,
It's been moved and seconded to accept the agenda as corrected with the addition of 2 policies. All in favor, say aye. Anyone opposed? All right, thank you. So I really need to apologize to you. I am so sorry. But we have an executive session and we can only have it at this time because it's the only time the attorney is available. So that means I have to ask all of you to leave the room for approximately, Bob, how long do you think? 15 minutes or so?
Yeah, this is just what you asked for, 15, 20 minutes.
And please feel free to take your chair if you know, if standing in the hallway is too much. I know it might be for me even. So.
The cafeteria is open and available if you'd like to sit in there.
I'm sorry to ask you all to leave after you've just got pumping. But please come back. So we will adjourn into executive session. That's 6:06. Please, thank you.
A definite time for how much you have to say.
Well, 15 minutes and then if it's longer. And it's for the purpose as stated on our agenda. Hey. Right.
Tracy, I realized just one moment.
of course it is. One of my.
Tracy, I'm running a couple different computers here.
Yep.
So if you'll just bear with me. So that I can get you on the screen for the board.
Thank you, Keith. You picked about the exact right number of chairs, Bob.
I'm gonna give Tim the credit there.
Hi, Tracy.
Hi. I can see myself, so I assume you can see me.
Just a moment, please. There is a community member who's logged in. I'm just going to be moving all community members into a breakout room, and then I'll bring you back into the main meeting at the end of executive session. Just bear with me.
All right, thank you for coming back. Thank you for your patience. I really appreciate that. We are going to move on to our consent agenda, and then we're going to move to public comment, and then on to the next item in the agenda. So on the consent agenda, we have the minutes first. Does anybody have any corrections or additions to the minutes? No corrections or additions? I have a few. On item 11C. So the minutes are being done through the recording, is that right, Bob? as a result from the recording.
Yes, they will
Okay.
be.
So on item 11C, where it says Director Gayhammer Crowe mentioned, I would like to have the word planned put in, so it mentioned a planned upcoming prescribed burn on USFS Forest Service land, not commercial timberland above Cook. Under public comment, which is item 8. Item A under that says Joan Graham commented on statements. Joan, I would like to have inserted on, wait, on 8. 8. I'm sorry, I didn't read the numerals right. 10, 11, 12, 13, 13A. Okay. Joan Graham commented on erroneous derogatory statements made about another community member, which means strike ESD 112. She didn't talk about that. And insert erroneous derogatory. And that's all I have to add. Does anybody have any questions about those additions or any other corrections to those additions or anything? Want me to read one of them again or anything, or?
No, I'm just wondering about the supposition. I mean, we're hearing the audience and their comments, but I don't know that it's our place to determine whether they're, well, I heard them,
I don't understand the question.
you know, the erroneous or derogatory.
Oh,
Why don't we take out erroneous and leave derogatory in? We could listen to have the recorded, listen to it again and state it more correctly. And it wasn't to ESD because she wasn't in attendance at ESD. Would you like to table them and have the minute taker review the recording again?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Does anybody have any objections to tabling the minutes to the next meeting so that the recorder can review item 13A, Joan Graham's comments? Hearing no objection, I would entertain a motion to table the minutes as stated.
I'll make that motion.
Motion seconded. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
I,
All right.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll get those next meeting. So now we are on to the AP vouchers. And everybody has an opportunity to look at the vouchers. Does anyone have any questions? Trees sure look like a lot of wood out there, Bob.
So big around. Unbelievable.
Did anybody ever count the Browns? See how old they were?
I haven't heard that count yet.
That'd be interesting for some of the kids to do.
You know, that is a good idea. And you say it, class, but they count the rings.
How many kids in other school districts, so especially city, probably have that opportunity.
let's see. Above All Trees did the removal. I haven't heard of that company.
Yes.
Good, fast. Okay, everybody feeling good about the vouchers? Any questions? Okay. And let's see, for payroll. We have here. That payroll. For April. Is the total of $122,843.91. Anyone have any questions on payroll? No. Okay, so we've tabled the minutes, so we have item B and C of the consent agenda. So we would entertain a motion to approve those two items of the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Anybody want to second the motion?
Sure, I'll second.
It's moved and seconded to pay or to approve item C and item D of the consent agenda. B and C, I'm sorry. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, so those are approved. So these are the documents to be signed, so let's pass those around. Let me start on that end. Is there a reason we can't just continue on and do this? Well, we could continue in public comment, but we really don't give them our attention if we're busy signing.
Well, can we not sign this when we're finished?
You want to wait? Sure, just, yeah, put it to a side. So we normally sign them while we're going through, but I think that in that case, we'd be happy to go ahead with public comment. So, I don't know of everybody's name, but please, who would like to speak first in public comment? All right,
My name is Robbie, and I just want to make a comment in regards to the minutes that'll be revisited from last month till next month about the derogatory and defamatory statements that were made by previous candidates. I made a statement during the last board meeting, and I had 17 pages of evidence that those comments made about those other candidates were derogatory. and they were erroneous. I also have the RCWs that show that they were slander and libel and defamation, and I had recorded my comment. So I don't know if that could be added, or I could bring those papers back in to show that they were defamatory and they were erroneous, and I just want to make sure that that is correct in the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? John?
Yes, well, good evening. Couple things if I might to the board. Thank you for letting me speak. I understand that, you all added to your agenda here tonight, the review of policy 5253. And that's why I am here tonight to speak. I think I understood that in front of you, or at least what you had, is copies of both the policy and the procedure. I did bring some copies of at least the model policies from WASDA, but if you've got the actual ones from LA, that's even better. And then I do have one other handout that I would like to share if the board is amenable to that. And that is about a couple particular items within the procedure 5253. So I'll go ahead and pass that out if that's okay. This will be sort of the focus then of my comments here tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks. I think that's new.
Could you have one for Eric?
Yes,
Is this Eric's copy?
that's good. Oh, I've got an extra one. I'll give it to Eric. There we go. And I also have, I don't think there's been time enough to distribute it, but I also have a letter that I drafted to the school with a copy to the board. I'd like to go ahead and pass that out if that's okay. It's already been given to the school, but I kind of wanted to copy the board and I just ran out of time to get it mailed on to everybody.
Thank
I got one there. There we go. I give it to you, Bob, but I think you have the electronic, so unless you want one.
No.
Okay.
But Eric,
Oh, thank you, yes. Okay, so I guess the nature of my comments are that I think those of you who know me closely know that probably over the last few months, the school has been somewhat fraught for me emotionally, because my wife, late wife Angela, was very involved, as a lot of us know, in the school and particularly in the foundation of the PCIA program. And so, because she had a lot of strong feelings and things, it's just been hard for me to want to engage. And yet I know that there's been a lot of changes and discussion within the school, and I just have felt like it's been kind of too difficult for me to want to contribute or to kind of whatever, offer my opinion or help. But a couple weeks ago, it came to my attention that there had been a warning issued against one of our PCIA instructors, Mr. Van Duzer, that involved kind of an issue under the policy that we're talking about, 5253, that involved a couple of students, including my son Matthew, who attends PCIA as a junior this year. And I've talked with, I think, each of you and talked with Bob as well, so I won't go into all the details, but I think everybody is kind of aware. And there's two things in particular that I'm focused on kind of offering comment on. But I think kind of before I go to those two things, the thing that's been hard in this situation is that this came to my attention, and unfortunately it came kind of through the circumstances of learning about it. I was never informed about it beforehand. And that's part of what was really hard for me, is to kind of learn that this thing had happened that's affecting my son and other boys that I wasn't informed. And I think under this policy, given the significance of, the genesis of the policy, I think about truly inappropriate relationships between students and staff. And so that kind of troubled me, but in a way that's a little bit neither here nor there, because the conclusion I've come to is that what I really want to focus on is recommending changes in this policy. And what you have before you is two particular excerpts from the procedure, which I think, as we all understand, we have kind of a general policy statement that the district has, and then a procedure underneath that kind of governs all the hows and the whys and how are we going to administer this policy. And so those two are listed there. I think I've given up my one copy of it, but I think the first one is item F. And it has to, oh, it's okay. I think I got it. And both of these, among perhaps others, I don't need to speak to everything that I understand was in this warning that was issued to Mr. Van Duzer, but these are two that I'm calling out as I think problematic. The first one is item F, that there are certain discussions, any discussions involving personal or family issues are not to really be allowed, either not allowed and not kind of sought after by the staff within the school. And that indeed those kind of discussions should be redirected to, I guess, kind of counseling staff. And, in the face of that, I think that kind of makes sense, right? If we have a student that has a very significant issue that would warrant, that kind of help, counseling help or what have you, I think that's not inappropriate. That would be fine. But the way the procedure is written is, I think, really undefined, because what is a personal or a family problem or issue? I think the nature of any staff member's connection with the student is gonna, of necessity, involve some level of personal connection with family, understanding the family that the student comes from, or their day-to-day issues. And so while I think on the surface, this model policy can make a lot of sense, when we see it kind of applied, the outworking of it, I don't think is workable. It's certainly not workable, I think, within our district. And it's not workable, I believe, within the PCIA program where we have really sought out from the beginning to form very strong connections between our teaching staff, all of our staff, and our students. And that's really a centerpiece of what we're trying to achieve there. And so it concerns me that this policy is being brought out and applied in this way, in a way that I would think would tend to really stifle positive communication with, between our staff and our students. So that's sort of my first issue. The second issue is item O of the procedure, which deals with certain outside school activities where a staff member would be maybe in contact with the student. And that's been kind of the second issue that has affected my son and some other boys. And so Mr. Van Duzer had been a participant in kind of a weekly game night over the last few months. And that had been a very positive and a very important, I think, connection for my son Matthew, and I know for the other boys, for Blake and for Miles. And to have that kind of cut out, one, without any communication about what was happening, was upsetting. And I would say that all three of these boys have had quite a bit of a personal issue in their life, suffice it to say. And that this activity has been a very positive thing for them. And so that's what has me quite excited. As I've talked with each of you, I think you've sensed that. And if I try to kind of set aside just even the strong feelings I have about it, I think just objectively looking at this particular language in this procedure, I do not think it works well within our community. Because we have a lot of interconnected relationships within the school and within our community, and that's unavoidable, and that's a strength, actually, I believe. And so it concerns me that, to my knowledge, I don't believe, at least in any recent history or during my time on the board, that we ever had a situation like this arise where this level of scrutiny under this policy was being applied. And I think indeed, if we look across the school, there are a lot of these relationships that are happening outside of the school. And I don't think that it should be, I don't think that the school should be kind of applying that in this way to stifle those kinds of connections. And so what you have before you is, I think, to wrap it up, my recommendation, or at least my suggestion, I have two. I think that on the one hand, my version 1 of item O would be a much more simplified version of this that would at the very end just kind of drop the word organized community activities and instead insert that it would be community, social, or family activities. And that those activities should be allowed. And I think that if you kind of think about it, and perhaps there'll be discussion about it, it's possible to kind of maybe want to more define that in a more detailed way, but I think that's going to be problematic because every relationship is kind of unique and we have a lot of different relationships. So to try to imagine all the different things that we might want to change or imagine is very difficult. So I think the more general, the better. And I think that in general, we should be looking to our staff and in particular our well-trained instructors to kind of know how that should work. And so moreover, that's sort of the two versions that I would offer on item O to be changed. And then I think on item F, at least in my opinion, I believe that whole section or that whole item should be maybe considered to be dropped. Because again, what is a personal and a family matter? Like, how do we not have an ongoing discussion with our students that shouldn't then immediately be redirected to some kind of professional staff? I just don't think that's workable or practical, and I don't think that's actually what's happening in the school. And if that's the standard we apply, I don't think it's a good thing. So I think I would just end with those are kind of the main things I would like to see those procedures in, or changed within the policy and the procedure. I would hope that this particular prohibition for Mr. Van Duzer, both on how he's able to discuss things with at least my son or other students, should be lifted, or at the very least better defined as to what the limits of that are, what is the scope. And then I think that his participation in this weekly gaming activity should not be prohibited. And I'd like to see those three things, the change in the procedure and those two prohibitions lifted. And I would say that I think, to speak for Mr. Van Duzer, I think he's been a very positive impact in the life of my son. Not only in this last very difficult 9 months of our life, but also through his whole tenure at PCIA. He's been an important instructor, as have all the staff and instructors. And so with that, I will wrap it up and thank you for allowing me the time to speak.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
Okay, does anyone else have any comments? Yes, ma'am.
My name's Andrea Van Sickle. I'm a parent of PCA. And I mostly just want to give support to what John has said. That I too have seen very positive things that have come from these interactions. When we came to PCA, we came from a different district. And a big part that sold it for him when he visited and us as parents was seeing the dynamic between the teachers and the students. It was so different than from other places. And like is the type of person that that spoke to him and that drew out the best in him and really helped him to challenge himself and learn what he liked, that kind of thing. And I do have some education background. Anyone who does knows that we do so many things in the school, knowing that it's hard to teach a hungry child. It's hard to teach a child in trauma. It's hard to teach. We deal with so many social issues because we have to in order to be able to successfully educate a child. And teachers play a big role in those things. And having these positive relationships make our students succeed. It helps them to be better. And so I would hate to see anything like that ever stifled. And also as parents, we were completely 100% comfortable with how things were going. We had no issues. I think it would be a totally different issue, if the parents were upset or a little worried or something like that, but that wasn't the case. I am grateful for the relationships that my son has had with his instructors here. It has opened his horizons. He has got brand new interests that he never had before, and I know as a direct result of relationships with his teachers. And I hope that's something we continue to foster.
Thank you, thank you. Yes,
My name is Jessica Manley. I have 3 kids. 2 of them have graduated from PCIA, and 1 is currently in PCIA. And I didn't know about this policy, but I will say that I also appreciate the fact that the professors are able to have a relationship with the students. One of my children was diagnosed with anorexia and anxiety. And the only reason this child was able to continue through the school year was because of being able to talk with her professors. Another one of my children had a very bad breakup, and the first thing they wanted to do was come and talk to his servant. And I appreciate the fact that they were there for my kids, because without that, something you don't want to talk to your parents about, and it wasn't enough to go to a counselor. Well, the one was, but because of that, they were able to get through the school years with these issues, and PCA is amazing, but the relationships they have with each and every professor has been beyond anything we could have ever hoped for in their schooling careers. So just wanted to add that.
thank you very much. Anyone else like to speak? Yes,
To try not to reiterate what's already been said. Excuse me. I'm Matthew Johnson. I'm one of the children involved in this sort of policy. I just wanted to kind of offer my own perspective and maybe some of Blake's and Miles for this. Mr. Van Duzer has been a very influential person, I think, in my life, and has a very positive impact, both as a teacher and also just a mentor and someone I look up to a lot. And he's always been there to just help me out or listen. And one of the ways we did this was through this sort of game night that we had. And it was fun, and it was, I think, really important, both for mine and my friends. Mental health, it was just a place to talk and have fun, and it was, it's a great outlet, I think. So in conclusion, I suppose, I would hope to have it back as soon as possible.
thank you for letting us know. I appreciate it. Anyone else?
I wasn't going to speak, but, and I'll try to make it really short. But when this policy was first brought out, I was teaching, and we had all the teachers came to the auditorium. We had to watch this video. And they said, don't ask students about their families, and don't talk to them after school. And I looked at my principal and I said, so when CPS pulls the child out of their home and you call me to take that child to our home, am I not supposed to do that now? And she said, in very vulgar language, bull blank, because we all know when people prey on children, we know what that looks like. And what this man does is the total opposite. And my job as a teacher at the middle school was to go up to kids and find out how their home life was and find out what they needed. And I don't think you'd be a good teacher, if you ignored when kids needed you. And that's all I'll say. But I know the policy can be taken different ways, and it's ridiculous if you take it word for word the way it's written.
Thank you very much. Anyone else like to speak? Yes, sir.
I also wasn't planning to speak, so I hope it comes out all right off the cuff. I'll just add the perspective of a teacher. I'm the technology instructor here at PCIA. And I am untrained in this policy, which may be a problem. It seems an important policy, right? But I am trained annually in OSPI funded or supported or endorsed teacher responsibility, less training. And it is the clear policy of OSPI that teachers form relationships with students, that students who have an issue that they bring to the teacher, that teacher be receptive and compassionate and helpful. And I think it is important, as the board considers this policy, to understand what teachers are being asked to do. So thank you very much.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Yes, anyone else?
I'd like to.
Yes, please.
My name is Miles. I am also a member of this weekly game night. I'd like to point out that over the last 9 months as well, I lost my father. And in that, one of the biggest people to be there for me and to help me out was Mr. Van Duzer. And as Matthew before mentioned, so many ways as a friend, a mentor, a teacher, and someone I knew I could always, walk into the classroom and it was a safe space for me to, talk about whatever it was that day or check in with the morning. And so these game nights have offered a great opportunity for me to be able to push some of the sadness and stress into a healthy place and to be able to talk about it with my friends, with someone I trusted, a trusted adult. And I would like to thank the board for considering the policy and that, really, Mr. Van Duser's, I owe him a lot, and this is, he's made a really big impact on my life, so thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank you boys for having the strength to share with us. I appreciate that. Liz, did you have a comment?
Well, I just wanted to comment on the young men's, they're not boys anymore. Ability to articulate so well what they think about the situation. I just wanted to ask a very serious question though. Matthew and Miles, and I'm assuming that's Blake. How often do you have to let him alone? Thank you, Anita.
Thank you. Is there any other hand back there anywhere?
I'll go. My name is Erica, K1 teacher, and I have 2 comments. One is, my maternity leave is beginning this August, and I will be out for the whole school year, and, I just want to be sure that the district is casting a wide net for my replacement. I know that it's a little late in the year to find a quality long-term substitute, especially for such a unique job as teaching 3 grades. And I just want to make sure we have the best interests of kids in mind and that we are working really hard to find someone really fast that can do a good job. I'm irreplaceable, but. My second comment is that I'd like to know how the district plans to respond to persistently low academic outcomes and test scores beginning in grade 3.
Great, thank you very much.
What was that?
Could you mind saying that again? We couldn't quite hear
The
you.
last,
I'd like to know how the district plans to persistently low academic outcomes beginning in grade 3.
How we were going to respond to the judgment test scores. Okay, anyone else? Yes.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna respond either, but I have to qualify this, Ryan's my son. And this is my wife, and, obviously I've known Ryan for a long time. And, going through this with him and speaking with him and seeing the joy that's been pulling out of him. And the way it's been handled is appalling, honestly. This man is so passionate and committed to whatever he does that I'm just shocked the way that he treated him. Shocked.
Thank you for letting us know. I think I saw another hand over here somewhere. Oh, I've got 2 more. Lynn and then the way back.
Well, Erica, changed the topics, which is what I was waiting for. Now it seems like we reverted, and I have a few comments about what John was talking about. I worked on the school board with John, and he's a very reasonable and level-headed person.
And so I haven't read the policy since, I was on the school board, but I'm sure his suggestions are right on the mark. And I also want to say in general, when, in this country, when somebody goes to a jury trial, it's not just the person who's on trial, it's the law that's on trial. In this case, I think the policy is on trial. And if we're within our rights to modify or eliminate any policy that we don't see fits our situation. So I'm 100% for where John wants to go with that. And my other comment is, back to what Erica was saying. Since you're embarking on the budget process, I think near the top of the priorities should be what's going to be done about the low grade level scores in reading and math. And that maybe two things should be thought about for the budget. One is, does there need to be some investigation of where the break is in the continuity of the education of these kids? And I don't know if there are specialists who do this, but if we need to budget some money to have a look at our teachers' competencies, or I don't know. I don't know where the ball gets dropped, but that would be a good thing to know. The other thing I think you should budget for in the meantime is so we can start picking up the pieces and getting these kids back up to grade level is money for tutors. You know, and we have tutors in our own community. I volunteered as a tutor here for 4 years. So, and I know other people in the general area that are tutors. I don't think you'd have a hard time getting tutors to come in. So I hope you'll consider those things when you start budgeting.
Thank you, Ben. Sir in the back? A ma'am, it's a man. I can only see that yet.
Today, so it's interesting. I came here for a different topic, but I feel like it's important to share the reason. I have a second and third grader here. And community is the number one reason. I consider it a privilege to be here. We're not in the district. We were on a wait list. And it was like the ultimate prize to get in. I was so grateful last year when my kids made it in here. Because I could see and I could feel a difference in the education system compared to the other districts around. So one is, I don't know Van Duzer but I know this story because for me, I had Debbie Cook in middle school. I had Miss Brenner in elementary school, and I had Miss Ninehouse in high school. So how you are a student without those interpersonal, social, emotional foundations, as a parent sending my kids here, the reason that it was critical for me is because I seen in Miss Erica that same presence to be there to meet my kids where they were, both on an academic level and a social and emotional level. Now, I have not had a chance because life happens to express my sincere disappointment after a conference that was held a few weeks ago. I feel a little bit guilty because I should have been more aware, but my daughter is in third grade. She left second grade at a third grade reading level. Math was right up there in writing, and she has regressed from to beyond below where maybe mid-second grade. Now, again, I haven't had a chance to really articulate or express this on paper, so this is probably new to the administration. This is just my shock in my conference when my daughter's pulling work out of her desk that is not spelled correctly, it's not completed. I'm looking at the results of a test. I'm asking questions about where, like what happened. It's we got 8 weeks left of school. In October, I was here and everything was fine. She was great. I was the reason she was tardy. We needed to work on that. That was the only thing brought up. And now I have less than, 6 or 8 weeks and she's behind like a lot. way more, and I wasn't notified, I wasn't aware, everything has been fine, and so I just speak to that third grade parent that it's not that she's not teachable because she was there. And so what happened? And in my asking questions, I have my own sense of kind of like where the ball's getting dropped, but it's essentially like she's floated through the whole year, and I don't know, like a child can't learn unless they're being taught. And if we're leaning on devices or reading, I was told, there was a heavy emphasis on, well, second grade reading is a lot of pictures and third grade is writing, rereading, and there's a little bit of and there was a lot of this instead of accountability. Because again, when I'm looking at the work, all the work, I think we were looking at it at the same time, myself and the teacher, and that's concerning to me. And even before she went into this grade, I was more concerned about the social emotional dynamic of it, but I let her make that choice. But now I have a son who's like beyond passing third grade reading level. And I have to I have to pull them from their community if changes don't get made, because my daughter did not get the education. She didn't get the support in some capacity, and I don't know why. So.
Thank you for letting us know that. Thank you.
Hi, my name is David Comstock. Follow on to support what Natasha is saying. While my son is in the KF second class, and like Natasha, we're out of district. My background is in Montessori and in education, and I chose this school because it was special. And you know, the small community, the family atmosphere, and I mean, quite frankly, Erica's bio was amazing, and coming to have my child in her class, it's exceptional the work that he's doing. In the past year and a half, I have heard from multiple families the concern of the next class up. And that concern, you know, he's got one more year, but as we're getting closer, more concerns are coming out for multiple families. And I can say about 5 to 6 families right now are considering whether we have to pull our children from Mill A and choose a different option for our children. And so I just wanted to share that, and you know that I was going to share that this evening, but it is a concern. And I don't know what the answer is, but I just felt that the board should be aware that there are multiple parents. And we just, you know, whether the teacher needs support or whether that, you know, whatever it is, we just want the best for our children, for our community. I love this school. I appreciate Bob. I appreciate the teachers. I want my child to be here. But, you know, I just want to see a little bit better as he's moving up to the next.
Thank you. We need to hear from you. Thank you. Yes, someone else.
Hello, Jim. I'm gonna say, because I'm gonna read, so I've got some of my notes from an October board meeting, and I know, Bob, you did your superintendent report, and this is when we, at least the last time I was here, when we went through the test reports. And as Lynn was talking about with the budget cycle coming up, one of the things we talked about in October was an improvement plan on test scores, and we talked about tutors then, and we talked about targeted level 1 and 2 and low growth students and how we were going to potentially help them. And it doesn't sound like we're doing any of that. And kind of like what Kev was saying, concern is they go into 3 through 5, they fall behind, then they're trying to make it up in 6, 7, and 8. And now we're going to be competing against potentially gifted students that are being recruited to come to PCIA. And our own students are going to come in and potentially be in the lower half of the class right out of the get-go. And, you know, I'm grooming my kids to try to get into some of the military academies, and those are, you know, top 10% in the country to try to get in there. And I don't want them to be handicapped going against that from other places. And that's part of the reason we came here is you know, the reputation of PCIA and saying, we're out of district. So, you know, we love what the school is doing and we want to try to help improve it.
Thank you. Okay. Well, we do have a second comment period on the agenda. And at this point on the agenda, we are going to move into discussion of policy 5253. But I do want to let you know that the superintendent will be giving us an additional report on the test score results, and the board will be discussing the recommended solutions and other things. So that subject will be coming up as well as this policy discussion. Okay, well, the first thing, I would need to make sure that the minutes show that we received a letter and recommendations from John Morrow. The letter and the recommendations are entered into the minutes and that they should become part of the minutes. So on this discussion, does everyone have the policy in front of them?
The policy, which portion?
5253. Okay. I guess to get the discussion rolling, I have several different things that the board can consider as we enter into conversation. But one is that this is not a policy mandated by law. It's a discretionary policy. The second is, it's possible that we could look at this policy or ask the superintendent to look at taking the procedures and having them different for the elementary school than for PCIA. But there's also something interesting in the union contract. May I read from the union contract? Is that not a problem? So on page 13, item 5, it says, employees shall be entitled to the full rights of citizenship, and no legal, religious, political, or social activities of any employee outside the classroom shall be grounds for any discipline unless the contact materially and substantially affects the employee's performance. So that right now would just say that an individual's person, what they want to do. But that could also apply to the subject that we've been talking about. So it's just words to look at and consider, because this policy could be interpreted as limiting the freedoms of rights.
And that's in the contract.
Pardon?
That's in the contract.
That's a sentence from the contract. Yeah, not from the policy, from the contract.
Right, that's what I'm saying, it's in the contract.
In the union contract, right? Mhm.
But this right here is ties us to an insurance program that was tied to
Yes.
EFT, correct? So if we start adjusting this, that could totally affect the way we're tied into the insurance, correct?
Well, I don't think that's an exact explanation. We have insurance, and when you change a policy and there's a situation involved with that policy,
That's not what I said.
yeah, it's not, there's no tie. No legal tie.
That's not what I'm saying.
Oh, I'm sorry, Keith, go ahead.
Has nothing to do with insurance. This right here ties us to a system of the insurance that we have through EFD. It's not an insurance, it's a risk management. Yes, correct.
Then, yeah, we'll help them
So if
find
we change
insurance.
this, it could kick us out of the system that we're tied to. Or complicate.
I think what was trying to be communicated in that earlier conversation was that revisions to this may potentially impact the eligibility of the district for liability coverage. She also made some mention of encouraging review of any possible recommendations. Of course, the board would always do that if you're modifying policy or procedure from the recommended laws to policy. And so that'd be the course of action if you want to make a variance from the recommended policy, which we've done, which the board has done times.
Comments?
That was one of my concerns, if we start adjusting things.
Definitely concerned with mine too.
And the other thing too is what I've heard here is one side of the story. So I've heard the other side of the story as well. So keep that in mind when I'm sitting here talking about things. I'm seeing both sides of the picture. So I'm sorry if you don't know the whole story. I'm not here to explain it.
May I say, I totally understand that, Keith, and when we talk, that's what I accept. If I could just push on that a little bit. I do think I would assume that being part of the risk management pool, it is something that we could offer language and talk to the risk management people and understand if we made certain changes, would that be acceptable? That seems totally reasonable. Moreover, I would be concerned about if we don't make a change, are we consistently applying this policy across the school to all the relationships? And is that allowed under the risk management protocols? I would suggest it's probably not.
Can I just ask you this? So the three kids right here play this game with the teacher. Is it opened up to everybody? Can anybody join into that game? That's all I'm asking. It's a simple math equation right there. I mean, open it up to everybody. You no longer have the liability of what you got right now. Do you see what I'm saying there?
I understand that, yeah.
So what you're worried about changing is really nothing other than taking a small group of kids and isolating. Take away the isolation.
I don't believe they are isolated.
Okay, the appearance right now is.
I don't believe there is an appearance of isolation.
Okay. Well, I don't know how many 16, 17-year-old kids are here. That's what I'm saying. There's a whole nother group of kids that have a voice in this too. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, let's try not.
I understand. Yeah, I understand that, and I think that it's possible that it could be opened up. I'm not necessarily, that's not what my decision to make. But
It's not mine either.
I think if we're going to apply this, then I think it should be equally applied across all the relationships in the school. And I would suggest that I don't believe we're doing that.
So a lot of this ruling is exactly what she is talking about. Exactly what she's talking about. You start opening it up and then where does it stop? I was a baseball
Seems to me we've
coach.
opened it.
I was a baseball coach for a while and I had to stop hugging a kid that had no father because of this same stuff. Just to stop it from going any farther. The appearance of it. It's not just what we think, it's what those kids are like. And it doesn't have to be these three kids. These three kids might be the exception to it. What if it's another kid that doesn't have the same background, the same morals,
I
a different
understand.
situation? Now you just open it up to another situation where now this kid can wind up going to her. So just be very careful what you're trying to adjust. That's all I'm saying.
Let's keep the conversation between the board, okay? I don't mind.
I apologize.
No, I don't mind at all. I just don't want to get in a back and forth disagreements or things like that, so.
Well, I'm just trying to clarify
Yeah,
what I'm
and
looking.
so the policy has several elements. Maybe we should go through each of these elements. But it's not just the there's several different pieces here. And so if we go to page 2 and we're looking at, Well, let's start with item F, because that is, one of the suggestions, and so that's a good place to start. Item F is at the bottom of page 1, and it says for non-guidance counseling staff, I mean, a teacher that isn't a guidance counselor, encouraging students to confide their personal or family problems or relationships. If a student initiates such discussions, staff members shall refer the student to appropriate counseling staff. In either case, staff involvement should be limited to a direct connection to the school's performance, student school performance. So one of the things that we have to remember is that the PCIA structure and the way it's set up for the relationship between the professors and the students is different than what you might normally see in an elementary school or even in a regular high school, because a lot of these kids are in a college environment. So on item F, the recommendation is we can eliminate it. It really doesn't do a lot as far as giving boundaries. It basically says that the other thing, we don't have on staff counseling. Counseling would have to come from ESD, and it would take several days to get here. So does anybody want to discuss item F and the options under item F? May want to look at it.
So with the parents of the student gave permission for a teacher to have this, be able to mentor and talk about things like that. Why should it be our problem?
I think that's a good question, because we know that there are situations where parents are educators and who they do have relationships in a small community with students that go to school. I think that the whole point of all of this, and a lot of it is, does that relationship impact the day-to-day activities in the classroom? And that's really one of the things that they're looking at here.
But you're looking at as procedure, not the policy.
Well, I'm reading the policy, we're looking at changing the policy.
You're on the procedure page.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, item F is on the procedure page, that's right.
It's there's only one page of the policy.
Right, and so if we find things in the procedure that are an issue, and we're considering the things that John has suggested, we want to make sure that the policy itself doesn't prohibit us asking the superintendent to make that change.
Right, and that doesn't affect our service management. The ESD. Because that's protection for it.
I'm sorry, protection
For the district. That's what that program is for.
Okay, does any have anything else they'd like to discuss?
You're saying F is not part of the procedure?
She said it
No,
is.
it is. Yeah, it is part of the procedure, which is page, just one page of the policy.
Okay.
This is all of it. So these are the suggestions that came from John.
As long as it doesn't, that's adjusting the procedure doesn't hurt the other than. But that's
I
something we
think
have to
that-
discuss with ESD, I assume.
Pardon?
I would assume that would be something we'd have to discuss with ESD.
Well, we-
Understand.
So we're not allowed to just talk about what we talked about earlier, right?
No.
Can't bring it into this
You
conversation.
can't discuss anything beyond what we heard in the public meeting as a result of John and the public talking to us
Yeah.
regarding.
So
this
there's some
situation.
matters to discuss among us about it. I think.
And that's probably why the offer would extended to have a following meeting after the board has received input from the community.
So I think that that's a good point, Bob, and, I think that we're obviously gonna struggle with this. So I think that there's, kind of two choices. We could ask for someone to help facilitate us in discussing this, that would be knowledgeable of the potential impacts. But the other thing that we could do is have a discussion that would involve the attorney, but we could start with an ESD support. The policy itself, we need to make sure that this policy is not infringing on the rights of an individual. And if the individual chooses to, as a professor chooses to have dinner at someone's home where students live and have conversations with students, unless, there's a situation where that kind of activity impacts the classroom, that's a freedom. And I really don't think that we need to look at this policy and make sure we're not infringing on the rights and the freedoms. And in addition, we are not limiting the ability of our community members to communicate and be with each other and even talk about problems. This is a small community. We rely on each other.
I think maybe we could rewrite it, but we got a lot of discussion amongst us before we could do that.
Mhm. Well, our discussions have to take place in a public meeting. So, we cannot discuss it in an executive session unless we're going to talk about specifically and only a complaint against an employee. And I think at this point, we just want to talk about the policy and how can we protect the district at the same time protecting the rights and freedoms of our students and our teachers.
So if you wanna look at that, go back to, the first page, under the policy, the use of technology, I believe have to fall into this, use of technology.
So we have a lot of ground to cover. And we have added this particular policy to the first reading. So policies can't be modified until we have considered and discussed them in an open public meeting 3 times. So that means it's 3 meetings.
Okay.
Well, this is our first one, then we'll have another one, and then the next one we'll discuss, and we can vote on it on the 3rd meeting. We can discuss and vote at the 3rd meeting. So, we're going to be doing this for a while. Does the board have any, advice on how you'd like to proceed?
I don't mind doing it for 3, because I think it's important enough that it really is only 2.
Well, you can discuss it at the 3rd reading.
No, I mean, you can also vote on it at the second one, but.
Oh,
And see how the second one goes.
Somebody, you gotta catch Eric up too.
pardon?
Yeah,
So we're missing one person, so.
we are, and that's probably not.
If somebody can
Yeah,
catch him up.
Yeah, it's really
maybe
sad.
that's
He's,
important enough to,
he's apologized, he's not here, they have a major outage that he's trying to resolve, so.
so he's probably not gonna be here. Yeah, that would make it more important to,
So does the board feel comfortable taking this home, reviewing it, coming back and discussing it again?
yes.
Sure.
Okay, let's do that. Anybody would like copies of the policy? Take one. Don, thank you very much. The board has some homework to do. and we appreciate the comments, and we certainly appreciate all the public comments. So let's move on our agenda, of which, I just want to make sure I have all my ducks in a row here before I move on. Budget report. Well, you know, we're at 50%. It's the 50, look at the numbers. Yeah. 58% of the year we're into them.
So, just sharing a comment from our business manager, Kristen Carell. Nothing standing out as noteworthy. Revenues are trending higher than expenditures. But just a reminder, and we can see that in this row E. Am I able to highlight here? Not gonna let me highlight that. Revenues trending higher than expenditures, but I think we've had 2 months of higher apportionment. May and June are always lower apportionment. And so, well, it looks like we have a $34,000 excess this month. We're sitting at 69,000. That is all gonna be balanced out by the end of June, because those are low apportionment months. But from her perspective, and as you pointed out, Diane, nothing standing out as noteworthy. She has no concerns, nothing else that she wanted to add. No concerns on her part. I was gonna duck to the budget detail report. And again, those are correlated. The percents added on the right-hand side correlating, and those connect you back and forth from the detail report to the budget status report. If you have questions, and I apologize for jumping back and forth again here, but just a reminder that the budget status is just 30,000 feet view, curious about why something is at 55%, why something is at 74% at this point in the year. That's what's in the detailed report. But those, here we are, we're at 7 months. This report is through March. 7 months into the school year. And the percentages by category are looking good. She doesn't have any concerns there either, so. And we can see down at the bottom, as Diane pointed out, we are at 50% of budget, which is under expending.
So if we end up, which hopefully we will, be spending additional money on addressing the needs of our testers at low students, so tutoring and et cetera, would that be coming under regular instruction, or would that be under a different category? That cost?
Well, it depends upon how the board would choose to fund something like that. So when we
where
talk,
does tutoring
when I
usually show
talk
up in the
about
budget?
those positions have been funded through LAP funds or title funds. We've used ESSER, some of the COVID relief funds for opportunities like that.
Under expenditures? It would,
When,
like maybe 70 other instructional programs or something? Or regular instruction or support services, maybe. That's not education.
When we have a conversation about next year's budget, in that budget worksheet, we'll see there's several different places, and that'd be a good place to look at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really, you can't spot it here.
As far as last month's budget reports, yeah, I didn't have anything other than just wanting to make sure that the board is aware of the high apportionment months that we're in. Low apportionment months going to balance out, and to share Kristen's comments.
All right,
Okay.
great, thanks. Does anybody have questions about on the status of the budget? 50% through the years, Diane pointed out to it, so. Income coming in just a little faster than expenses. What's the other way around? 52% expenses before. Okay. Nothing else? Then we are on to the superintendent's report.
Just reporting back to the board about the partnership with the Underwood Conservation District. They have requested to host a community Firewise meeting for the Millie community. Asked if they could use our facility, of course. So they are, they've just scheduled the use of the building and are preparing some flyers and promotional materials to be shared with the public. And that's scheduled for May 2nd. So we'll definitely pass that along, get that spread throughout the community as much as possible. Once we receive that.
Got the neatest pile of branches I've ever seen. I agree. They're gonna love that when they.
Yeah,
see
all credit right there to Lynn Bergeron, right there. Also,
Being appreciated.
yeah. So the chipping program, there we go, and that's what you're referring to. That is still yet to be scheduled. We're coordinating that with those agencies. And just following up on to the board had interest. The downs trees, there were 3 down trees by PUD, and then the really big rounds were a result of the district having 2 very, very large trees taken down that were really close to the buildings. It was recommended they be removed when we had that Firewise assessment of the facility. And the 3 community members that reached out with interest happened to all be senior citizens, and so that was an interest to the board also. And they are working together well to take advantage of that opportunity. They express their appreciation.
Did you like Diane's idea, counting the rings for the students?
I made a note.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
That'd be great.
Good.
Just wanted to share about spring parent teacher conferences, over 91% student family participation in the Millie School and 92% family participation for PCIA. That was remarkable partnership with parents. Wanted to share about the summer school program that we are ramping up. Essentially reaching out to and wanting to provide opportunities for students in grades 1 through 6 who are testing or performing below grade level, specifically reading, writing, math, transportation, morning snack, lunch, all funded. In fact, there's a requirement now that if you have a summer program, there's meal requirements that are defined for that. And so Naomi is managing that, making sure that we're within the requirements as those are defined for those programs. In the end of July, early August is when that's most likely going to be reaching out into course because wanting to continue to provide support for our students. The funding for this And funding for this is already approved by the board. And this is the last year, we're nearing the sunsetting of those use of those COVID relief funds. So the ESSER 3 funds or the COVID relief funds. And one of those pieces is specifically about addressing learning loss. The teacher, paraeducator, transportation, food services contracts, those are still being worked out and should have those ready for the board by next month.
So that's like a 2-week deal?
It'll be 3 weeks.
3 weeks?
Is this put on by the same teachers that are in their grades?
There will be one teacher and one paraeducated.
Okay.
How many students will that be?
In the past,
Well,
we've
you
had
said
approximately,
it's just for first through sixth grade.
Right.
Low performers.
that's the targeted audience, wanting to
Everybody
address, wanting to
participated. Would
make
that be
sure.
20 kids or how many kids will that? If
I
everybody-
don't have that number in front of me. I can say historically, last year, Ms. Erica, you mind me putting you on the spot? About how many students were
About 10 kids, so it wasn't, it was third
last
grade and up.
last year? We ran a different age range.
So, one teacher
How long
and
is
one para, and are you,
Hold on.
looking at you asked the question, is it gonna be our current teachers or?
Yeah, well,
someone new?
it's one teacher and one other person, so it's not the 3 teachers.
Oh,
So I don't know which teacher.
How long ago did I
It's not
lose?
us.
How long ago did I lose my slide?
What did you say?
Just now.
Okay,
So we don't know who the teacher will be. And the subjects will be math and reading, you said?
math, reading, writing. Well, I may or may not be able to share with you there.
Well, that's pretty.
Wow, well, I apologize for, I don't know why I have lost this connection. Just wanting to continue with the report. Incredibly pleased to report completion of the negotiation. I shared with you that previously the collective bargaining agreement is a 3-year collective bargaining agreement. That bargaining began in April last year and concluded last month. A total of 28 sessions with the Millie Education Association. Some high points there. A standard salary schedule, a standard and competitive salary schedule was a priority. That will be implemented next year in next year's contracts. And that really was a part of it being sustainable, which was one of the obviously major priorities of the board, and the directives of the board, of course. However, this was negotiated and needed to be sustainable for the district long term. This bargaining agreement includes increased protections for teacher prep and planning time for both schools. And expanded participation in school governance and decision-making between the administration and the teachers. That is the last. That is the last item that I had in my superintendent report. Would you like me to just to roll straight into? Oh, I did. I just rolled straight from superintendent report to negotiation report. Would you like me just to keep going in the interest of time and talk about?
I have questions about superintendent report, like on them little test scores. I asked for some information going on test scores going back. I kind of seen there's a problem here with our little test scores. And I wanted to see where the problem started, if it's getting better or worse. And I was wondering why I didn't get them.
Right, yeah, so I reached out, your request was pretty extensive. And it was more specified than anything that we'd ever done before. And so when I responded, I told you, this is a huge ask. This is gonna take a while for me to pull and segregate that data in a way that we'd never done before.
So you decided just not to do it?
No,
Where is it?
I mean.
I just told you, this is gonna take,
Couldn't he have done it?
I'm sorry.
We have a tech guy. Couldn't he have done it?
That's, he's in system and network administrator in IT, so this is not, I can't ask him to do something that's outside of his job description, so no.
Oh, well,
No, when I responded, I said, Bill, this is a huge ask, this is gonna take me some time.
Could you give me an idea about how long it's gonna take? Just a rough idea.
Oh, I think this would, well, if I had nothing else on my plate, I think I could do that in less than a week.
I think it's kind of important to look back and see what happened and what are we doing about it?
Well, you
Yeah,
heard from some people that are, this watch. So
I
I know.
I understand and I get it, and
So when you go on to
Mhm.
the website, and there's a link from our website to go to this website, I can't remember exactly what it is, it's like TPA or something like that. There are, assessment results for every year on that website. And, for example, it says that, certain percent are performing at certain levels. And it has levels 1 through, performing at the standard for that grade level. And so you could get those for each year. And they go back as far as 2014 and 15. And then you can get them by school, and you can also get them, and this is just off the website. You can also get them where it shows, all students, and for example, for 22-23, it shows that all of the elementary schools, were only at 26.9% and 34.6%. So those percentages are also available for each year. So I'm wondering if, basically what it shows is we're not improving. In fact, we're getting worse. And it doesn't make it at this point for the whole school as to why we're getting worse. But what does make the difference is each individual student, because if I look at my 3 kids, they're also individually different, that they each will, or the amount of catch up that has to be done from, well, most of the students in this situation, it's going to be an individual need on the type of tutoring they're going to need to be able to catch up. So are we going to have the ability, we'll start with this, going to be able to do the individual attention that's going to be needed to help those students who choose to participate in the summer school to catch up. But how many days a week? 3 hours a day?
4 days a week.
4 days a week. Okay, thank you. And with 1 teacher and 1 para. So we have 2 more months yet. What can we do in the next 2 months? And I know that you've started something that I really like the idea of, and that is combining children regardless of the grade to their level of ability in math and bringing them together for a period during the day. Are we going to be able to continue to do that or do more of that so that the kids that are at a like stage of learning can be together and we can help get them caught up before the end of the year? We really don't want to pass them on to the next grade when they're at this low. We've got to make improvements. So we're going to be able to do that.
So I lost. I thought you were talking about summer school and then
Well,
you started
there's
talking
two
about
ways.
something else we're
There's two
doing
ways.
here. And
We have summer school,
Mhm.
the effort you started to address the need. Now we have also have the remaining 2 months of this school year of which we can do things to help these students move ahead.
yes. I'm sorry. So then in your
What are
question,
we going to do for the next 2 months to help these students? The students like we heard.
What
about.
can we do to
What can we do over the next, between
Help
now and the
you.
end of the year?
Tutoring,
we
is
don't
there
wanna
any
pass them on.
tutoring or anything like that that can be offered? Anything to help kids?
at this time, there is it's not after school tutoring. There's after school
study hard?
study hall. It's time for students to work supervised after school. That's not a tutoring situation.
So why can't we?
At this
do
point,
tutoring
we
after
have,
school? Can we do tutoring after school?
if we could create a position, post a position for something like that after school.
Have we done that in the past, had after-school tutoring?
We have.
Do we need more than one position? There's a lot of kids that need help.
What's the alternative? Paraeducators during the day, grouping kids together. We have tutors available, local right here, live next door.
Yes. What are you suggesting here? I mean, you're just suggesting that I can create and post some positions.
I'm really hoping that
The
we
board
can come
will-
up with a way to help these children so that when they graduate from 4th grade to 5th grade, they've made progress. Right now, they're just stagnant at the same level. We need to do something special that we're not doing, something different.
How hard would it be to post something right now and see how fast you can get a teacher that is willing, or somebody that's willing to come in and help these kids in the afternoon?
Well, I guess the question also, Bob, is that we don't know how many students are involved and how many tutors would be needed to do it. And what other alternatives are there for during the day groupings and special attention during the day?
Well, if you could at least get one teacher in there and get it opened up, and then very quickly you'll figure it out. You figure the rest out. Whether you're gonna need another teacher or another 2 teachers. But the thing is, to get it started, get a teacher in here now, as soon as you can anyway. You know, you got 2 months. Even if you get the last month where you have it available for kids to come in and help them learn, help them catch up, help them.
So, I mean, as far as the finance side of it, if the board is giving me direction to, and this is where I'll have to bring this to you and say, unless you're just giving me carte blanche just to go ahead and spend.
Well, do we have the budget for this? We do have a budget for this, right?
Yeah, I asked last month, you
So-
said we had tutoring dollars.
We have, yeah, and all of that funded through ESSER. So yeah, the board is directing me, especially through summer. We are spending down those COVID relief ESSER dollars.
Well, they're gonna go away anyway.
Yeah, exactly, which is why we're working to spend them down,
Yeah.
in the ways that have been approved by the board. And so, I have created positions as they were presented to the board and approved by the board. And if you're saying, yeah, just create positions and we'll sign off, then yeah, I'll do
Especially if
that.
you're gonna run out of this money anyway, you might as well try to get that.
Well, yeah, and so the programs that I'm sharing about are ones that the board has approved. So the board is approved and signed off on.
Okay.
Can I just, volunteers.
Amen.
I'm a parent in that class and I am a certified K-8 teacher. I haven't even heard that there is a problem. I'm happy to, I stay at home and so I have a child older that is pretty competent to do school online. I'm happy to come in and run a group. I'm comfortable with that. I'm happy to. I haven't heard that there was an issue until conference time.
So thanks for bringing up the suggestion of volunteers. So,
Are you busy tomorrow?
I can clear my schedule.
so Bob, you did present us with contracts for extended hours for doing the after-school activities like clubs and stuff. And so do we need a special meeting so that you have a chance to put together a plan and you can bring it to us, let us know what the cost is and we can consider approving that cost?
I can include that in the May 6th meeting.
May 6th, May to June, this is the mid-April.
That's the next meeting that the board has.
That's the next meeting planned. We could schedule another meeting. Somewhere I brought my calendar, guess I'll use my phone.
I believe the four of us are retired, so there's only one of us that works,
Yeah, retired? Okay, so,
or just tired.
so there's next Monday. There are 2 more Mondays before the 6th. What kind of time do you need to prepare for us, prepare something for us? Or do you need our approval?
The only thing I would need approval for is approval of contracts. Those would have to be specific to an individual.
So you can look at the option of having tutoring come in during the day, volunteers or hired tutors after school, volunteer or hired.
The only thing, we can manage background checks. We can manage background checks fairly quickly.
Well,
There's
Lynn's already
posting.
approved, right?
I failed my fingerprint test 4 times. Because they told me I didn't have enough fingerprints.
So,
Yeah, I mean, as far as volunteers and background checks would be the only,
yeah, let us know what you need to solve
Posting
the
it.
problem and we'll come back in 1 week or 2 weeks.
Well, you got somebody that.
if there's something, if there's something that needs board approval, and that would be a contract. And then that's the only thing that really would require
What about
approval at this point.
volunteers?
Yeah, it doesn't involve the board. That would just be
Okay, so you don't. need a
creating,
special meeting to get our
promoting,
approval.
publicizing,
So really,
background checks.
so if you had volunteers, all you'd have to do is come in tomorrow and talk to you and try to set things up. Pretty much. Well,
Volunteers don't need fingerprinted. They just have to run background checks. So,
Mark,
but yeah,
good.
yeah, you're right
Quick,
there.
Jonathan, what were you gonna say? Nothing. So do we need to meet in a special meeting or not? No?
Not
Okay.
at this time.
Hey, do you have any more questions, Bill, on that?
I think we pretty much covered it.
Formally to give them
Go ahead.
Would you,
Any of this?
would you like to make a motion?
No, I mean, do we need to?
Do you need a motion to move ahead?
Okay. That's all. I just want to make sure because we go in.
Thanks for clarifying that, because sometimes that can be a problem, so just for the minutes, clarify that the board is unanimous support for Bob taking action, whatever is necessary to
help them.
do the best we can to get our students up as far as we can before the end of the year, and then, he already has plans for some next one. So we'll hopefully get a lot of students there as well.
And you don't have the teacher set up for that, for some school yet?
Not yet.
Okay, Bob, you brought up the union contract, and it's next on this, but, I just had a couple of questions. I guess it's too late to make any changes, right? Because I didn't see the contract until just, when you put it up.
It has been, this point, it's been tentatively agreed by both parties. It's been ratified by the association just last Friday.
Well, I'm sure that it's
Yeah.
probably too late, but I wish that, when we go through it again on page 15 under communication, that we would have some references to the uniqueness of PCIA and, PCI communications and relationships between professors and students when it comes to evaluating the classes they're taking, the approach they're taking in their education, et cetera. Then,
So to that point, the next time this will be negotiated, it will be in 2026.
Is that what it is, a 3-year contract?
Yes.
And then, on page 41, under classroom assistant time, I thought it should have some references to, tutoring and, and then on page 51, where it talks about workday and events after the school day. The other event that is good to have teachers participating in on occasion is in workshops, visioning, strategic planning, and retreats. So just some little comments that we'll go over this again before the renewal. Since it's too late now. Hey, we are on to the 24-25 budget.
Agenda item 6.
You're gonna
And
ad-lib
I
that?
don't know why the display has failed here.
Well, you gave us a budget.
Anita, can we take a recess?
Yes, we sure can. What do you want? 3 minutes?
Yeah.
How long does it take? Bathroom run.
Yep.
I hope you know, I'm not saying no. I'm just saying there's a lot more to it than what this gives me.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, yeah, I'm totally.
It should not matter, no longer. It's just young and middle school.
Anything else?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, like Bill.
So really, the only parts that.
So what?
The stuff that we have.
I taught kindergarten and then first grade, and then I've been at home with my kids.
Yeah, the school.
I know, we've been looking at that
And
already. Like writing, I see like a lot of, like the writing.
That's what I
Or reading that here, so, yeah.
Um,
Shoot that for a fourth.
Like, I just say. when- And you've gotta, I think we just wanna make sure that we know.
Yes.
And we know what we're trying to accomplish, the community, we wanna push for that region.
Oh, yeah.
Because otherwise, like, people like me, they're all thinking, well. And we did get something, but sometimes it's worth pushing. To achieve the outcome.
Where I come from, not just what everything about it. Always. And that's a lot of this stuff was very well thought out.
I agree. So here's my. Lawyers, the things that why was the lawyer?
Yeah. Continue now, like apparently.
Well, we have.
my opinion. Her mom was able to get like.
And so it would.
Yeah, it's only-
Yeah, these are the approved procedures that are adopted. Well, I'm just saying, we're gonna explain.
Oh, I know.
What if we were to take this? Included on the, not action, but just discussion of the need for this, for May 6th meeting. To save time, it's almost 8:30.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I'm like,
Is that a good idea?
I'm like. I'm guessing.
I get it.
I mean, you tell me.
We don't need to talk about these, it's the first reading, we don't need to have discussion on them, right? Can we just skip that too? I mean, not skip it,
You just table it.
Yeah.
Table it. policy.
yeah. Well, if I ask if anybody wants to discuss, everybody's probably gonna say no. Yeah.
All this could table. They're gonna discuss. All is in the. Right information. I think it's already, you had it. But in your
Yeah,
packet.
so yeah, both of these are both
And this
policies.
is
so we
just,
can-
this is just me.
Right.
Either way.
Let's
Today,
combine this with this and let's do it in May. Yeah. Let's I'll just ask the board if they agree to postpone that activity.
this stuff.
Yes, there is.
Oh, you mean you yourself?
In 20.
Yeah. Not really.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, so I'm asking for, we can say that, on the game thing, Yes, that is my view. I'm suggesting, but I don't think we need to, and I think we should have a more open view of what actually. And I would suggest. that we let the things like that aren't getting- And I think those actually might be prohibited.
This is for the babies. More.
Okay, let's get started if we can. It's getting very late. And so let's have a report from our superintendent on the 24-25 budget. Following that will be comments again. Oh dear, I
Anita?
forgot the emergency closure request. That's the next thing. Hopefully it's short.
It's,
Pretty sure it is.
and I apologize that the display has failed. The board already approved a calendar. In the last month's meeting, that was designed to add over 10 instructional hours back into the school year. The purpose of that was to make sure that we met the instructional hour minimum requirement of the state. But we lost 5 days. We only had 3 built-in makeup days. We need to submit a request to OSPI for those 2 days because there's a 180-day instructional requirement. But the state will waive the days as long as the district confirms that the instructional hours have been met. And by adding those Wednesday afternoons back into the calendar, we now meet the instructional hours, but I need the board's approval to submit the waiver. And so that's why it's on the agenda. That's why you'll see it in the action items. And that is what the waiver communicates to OSPI. Questions?
Anybody have questions on the waiver? Ask the state to give us a waiver so we don't have to do that day. Okay, board will entertain a motion to approve the
Well, it's
request of the superintendent.
that's in the action items.
Oh, it's down below.
It's in the action items.
So we don't
Yep.
even have to do that right now.
No.
Okay, now the budget.
Okay. The 3 things scheduled to share with the board related to the budget are the the enrollment forecast, staffing forecast, and then just the first draft of the budget worksheet for 24-25. Initial enrollment for MAS looks to be in the 45-46 range. This year we're 45, so enrollment strong, holding steady as a school. PCIA, initial estimates for PCIA enrollment next year, up 22%. That's approximately 5 students. So for the most part, enrollment steady on the student side. As far as teachers are concerned, you heard Miss Erica mention that she has requested a leave of absence for next year. All other teachers have expressed an intention to return, and we're not expecting any changes at staffing levels. Classified staff, we have our incredible LAP paraeducator will not be returning next year, but it's only because she will be in her student teaching program. She's working on achieving her certification to become a teacher. She's fantastic. But she's moving on to student teaching. So that opens, that's going to be the only expected vacancy in the classified staff. So no other, all of the other classified staff expressed an intention to return. No significant changes expected at the staffing levels there either. As far as the 24-25 budget worksheet, I didn't I didn't have it for you until this morning. Apologize for that. So can you? I'm gonna. Anita,
Pardon,
is this?
this one? Yeah. Bill's already got it, looks like.
There we go.
Anybody interested?
So just really a comparison of the current year to next year. What Kristen has done for us, of course, is updated this with the teachers' salaries based off the negotiated salary schedule. So a change there, but again, it's not significant. We absorbed some of the increase with the expected and budgeted increase already in that category between last year and this year. I'm sorry, between this year and next year, there was already an expected increase. But a big change in the teacher salaries, that's there. The insurance benefit has been updated by Kristen, so that's reflected there also. She's updated revenue factors and formulas. She's applied the state released IPD across all the other positions and values. So if you're wondering, how did a lot of these other values, where did they come from? They were this year adjusted for inflation. Almost everything. And that's how the 4-year model is rolled out. Other big changes, if you look down toward the bottom, ESSER 3 is gone. If you look, and you can see it up above, there's not line numbers on this. But if you look in revenue, down toward the bottom, and I apologize, the display has failed. The CTE program in revenues, it looks like it went from 91,527 to 9,756, and that's a bit of a cut, but you might recall that 91,000 was an initial estimate. We knew that, so at the time that the budget was approved, that was the value that was given. And it was a wash both on the revenue and expenditure side. So we're not losing anything, but we finally have accurate numbers in our budget, and that's accurate on the revenue and the expenditure side. But just wanted to explain why something looks like it's gone down. Almost 80,000.
Question for you, of course, under board of directors on the 23-24 budget, we have a number there. What were we budgeting that number for? What was that covering?
Are you referring to the 22,060? Yeah, that is it. That's
This year or next year?
Well, I wondered about this year's, and then next year's significantly lower, so I just wonder
Right.
what kind of things does that?
Oh, that was legal.
Oh, that's legal costs.
Yes.
Okay. And that's separate from the contract negotiation legal costs. Okay,
Yes.
all right, thank you.
So this budget, last month you said something about you got another 300, almost $400,000 added to the budget, 1.6 to 1 to 2. So it looks like here you have a total budget of a little over 2. So you're for sure gonna get that.
Oh, 300,000. When did he say that? I got 300.
Yeah,
You said there was a process that somebody was telling you about and explaining to you how to get another 300,000. The budget last month was 1.6 something. And you explained that you had, I do remember you explaining how you had somebody that was telling you how to get another. So that brought your budget up to 2. So I'm assuming that is for sure.
Well, this right here,
Okay, so.
this right here is the first draft. This is draft 1.0. I mean, the only thing we really know is that the teacher salaries are calculated according to the negotiated salary schedule. So that's known for the teachers we have. That is known. Everything else is adjusted for inflation. And so as we continue to work with input from the board, directives from the board, I'll go back to our business manager, Tracy, over the period of the next several months. For this to be refined. I mean, next month, what she'll have for you is the 4-year model. The current 23-24 is going to drop off. And the 4-year model is going to be next year and the following 3 years. Because that's a requirement that we have, that we submit a 4-year budget to the state. And of course, the interest here is that anything we do be sustainable.
I guess that's my question.
Yeah.
What you have here is money that you're gonna get from the state and everything else, all the other entities where you get money.
Yep.
Is gonna be enough for this budget that's in it, right?
At this point, I mean, at this point, this is a fair question. Down, look at the very, very bottom. The very bottom there, literally the bottom line.
Yeah.
I mean, this is going to change, but in this initial draft, you take the expected revenues and the expected expenses.
Okay. So
We're
these are
approximately
expected.
6,000
Okay.
in the black, but
Okay.
we're really, really early in the budget process. This is just a
Right.
first glance of next year's budget with some actual numbers and everything else adjusted for inflation.
Okay.
Cool?
Yeah.
Okay, next month. The 4-year budget. Be this expended. Okay? Okay.
All right, so the budget process hasn't really changed, so our next meeting is scheduled to be a budget workshop on May 6th. That will also include training, and later on, I'm going to bring that again. Let's move on to public comment. Is that okay with everyone?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. All right, first one in the back.
I'm standing because my voice doesn't project very well. I'm Rebecca Bentley, and I have worked here for 2 years now, and this community is very dear to me. I am a registered nurse. Miss Erica has me being a reading tutor. And I help in a few other things around the school. I have worked at 2 other schools, and I have been on a school board in the past. But my job here is different, and it has to do with this small community, which I am not a member of. I'm not a district member. I don't even live in the state of Washington. But I feel really connected, and I am old enough, maybe the oldest person in the room, I don't know. But had I known about Ryan, I'm old enough that I could have given him a hug, had I known. And I don't think anybody would have batted an eye. Anyway, the teachers here are sweet and dear. The community is so special, and one of the things that bothers me, which is why I'm standing here, is that somehow or another, the community is somewhat divided, and that hurts my heart. I hear things because I don't know if there are exact sides or not, but different opinions of what goes on. And I find that disconcerting. it would feel a whole lot better to my heart if this whole community, instead of pairing off in little sections here and sections there and thinking that they know all of the answers and deciding, you know, how they're going to move forward in cloak and dagger format. If everybody could talk together, the staff, the parents, the teachers, if everybody could do that, you know, in a heartfelt way, instead of planning what the next attack might be, that hurts my heart because I love so many people here and I hear way too many things. Point being, I walked through the gym one day and some of the robotics things were behind whatever those dividers are to protect it. And as I got to the middle of the gym, I heard voices behind there and they said, oh, don't worry, that's just Miss Rebecca. We're okay. Students were back there. It wasn't that they were doing anything wrong, but I smiled to myself and thought, you have no idea what I hear as I walk around this building. So my plea to everybody is to open up your hearts and talk amongst each other. Don't just divide yourself up and think that you know for sure what's going on. It's a school and it's certainly not perfect. And we have some glaring issues that I know Bob and Erica, Jennifer, I know people are addressing them already. But I'm not sure that everybody in the room is aware of that, or everybody that was here would have been aware of that. So my plea is just to get together and open up your hearts to each other, you know, and not just think, you know, this is the way it's got to be. Because everybody doesn't know how the budget works between the high school and the grade school, for instance. How monies can be shifted or not shifted. Nobody knows how or which of the students, you know, really needs it and the help that they need, you know, to bring them up to performance level. But even if we identify who those students are, we're still going to have to figure out what the key is that's going to turn their little hearts and minds on. We can't force them to learn if other things are happening, you know, and they're not willing, you know, they may remain below, even if we are doing our very best. It's like that. My thought is that this is like an amazing little school up on the hill. And I can see no reason why this school can't be a beacon on the hill, and everybody's going to look at this school and say, oh, what are they doing that makes this school so great? How is it that all of their school, how is it that all of their students are above proficiency and they're in the 90th percentiles in everything? How did they do that? And I can see that actually is an attainable goal. I know other schools that have done that, a little school not too far from here, who went from failing, where some of our scores are right now, to being one of the top 10 schools in the United States, not the state, but in the United States. So I'm cheering you on and loving you as parents and teachers. And just hoping and praying for the best, because I think, you know, if we can get past just battling and actually think about the possibilities there, that I just don't see that with the people that are in this area, how could we fail?
you know, but somehow or other turn this around. We're identifying big problems and I don't know how we can solve them.
I think that's what all of us want.
Well, and that was something that I didn't say, because people that are thinking, you know, they don't even care, or they would be doing something. The other people are thinking the same thing. I mean, people are working on this and identifying these problems already, and to me, I see that everybody's on the same page, they just haven't figured that out yet. So, and my last comment is, Erica is irreplaceable. Seriously.
Thank you.
I don't endorse, I don't.
Okay, Jonathan. I'm sorry, no, Jennifer was first.
Whatever. Go for it.
I just want to address a few issues. My name's Jonathan Krieger. I do have a son who attends here. You know, with us losing ERS, sorry, and so forth, we can't really afford to lose any students from this school. There seems to be, and not just this school year, but in previous school years, there is a common denominator for the issue with the test scores, right? And we all know the elephant in the room. As parents, we see that there's a lack in this gap for this grade range. That needs to be addressed. And if parents are willing to pull their children because as a board or superintendent, we're not addressing that issue, that's a huge concern because that's the longevity of the school, right? And that's just not good. It won't be here for much longer if people just start pulling their kids. Also, I'd like to point out another fact on Mr. Van Duser's event. If you're going to single him out for something like this, there needs to be equality across the board, right? There's events that happen outside of here that are not just Mr. Van Duser. Greta has kids over to swim at her house in her swimming pool. Was that reprimanded? Was that put into check? Not to my knowledge, never brought up. I don't really see how one is okay, but one's not, right? And as a superintendent, there should be a formal apology offered to Mr. Van Duser for this. Because this is a gross overstep of bounds.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you, Jonathan.
One more
Oh,
thing.
sorry, okay, go
No,
ahead.
that's fine. Looking at the proposed budget, between last year's budget and this year's proposed budget, if we have test scores that are in the drains right now, I would like an explanation of why the superintendent deserves a $6,500 pay raise when we can't afford to get tutors in here, one, or we get a deer in the headlights response when people are trying to volunteer and there's just deer in the headlights. You only need a background check for volunteer. We don't need a program set up in place. Right? That's a no-brainer. If people are willing to come and give their time, win, and I don't know, I'm sorry, but if they're going to do that, we should be gleaning that with eagerness. And that should have been addressed in October when the scores came out and things were low. Not, what, 2 months left of school or whatever it is, few months left. We should have been addressing that long ago. That's all I'll say.
Thank you. Jennifer?
All right, so, for those of you who don't know me, Jennifer Talbot, and I'm the 6th or 8th grade teacher. I want to, address what John was talking about the equality across the board for everybody. And I would definitely say that's not happening with the policy 5253. And I would like to know what is going to happen with Ryan's situation.
because you clearly heard the support for him and his relationships with the students. So, you know, that's where I'm gonna say on that. And with the liability that we're talking about, you had a board member on the board for 18 months. That was a huge liability. And now we're concerned about liability.
Thank you,
For the record,
Jen.
that board member actually was in jail. Don't do it, that's not.
Okay, yes,
Quick one, a question of, what is the appropriate way to give you information as the board? And I thought about this in many contexts, but the clearest and easiest way to understand why a mechanism may be needed that doesn't appear to be here is with Mr. Van Duzer, where Bob, the superintendent, is acting as investigator. It would be inappropriate for that to be the conduit to the board that makes the judgments about this, right? And so, if I have personal experience going into lunch with Mr. Van Duzer when students are already there or come in after the fact. Nobody's asked me about that, and I'd be happy to tell anybody, you know, my experience, but, that and many other cases, as I listened to the board today, they're just factual things I recognize would be appropriate for you to know, but inappropriate for me to interject in the middle of a board meeting. So what's the way for people to pass you facts or to communicate with the board?
I put a flyer on the table back there that helps a little bit, but anybody can speak at any time to a board member through verbal, written, email, my email's on that piece of paper, texting or whatever. So you're welcome as the public, as teachers, as staff to speak to the board at any time and pass this information. If you want information that the school has, such as paperwork and stuff, you should go to the superintendent because the board doesn't necessarily have the correct copy available. If you have a complaint, then your complaint, unless it's about the superintendent, it's about anyone else at the school district, should be written and should go to the superintendent. If it's about the superintendent, it again should be written and should be brought to the board. You bring it to any board member. When the board member receives that, they're obligated to bring it to the entire board, and the entire board will make a decision on the next step. But as far as information and facts and just wanting to help us out or even ask questions, you can do that anytime you like. Most of us have open door policies. I'm from the old times. You could drop in, you didn't have to call first.
I think my phone number and email's on that paper too.
Excellent, thank you. I'll be sure to pick it up, and thank you for such a comprehensive answer. Very helpful.
Yes, John.
Yeah, could I speak just a little bit more?
Sure.
Thank you, and I know it's getting late, and I don't envy the board and Bob. I know a lot of heavy stuff hearing, but I know it's hard to be kind of the incoming fire on that. So I feel bad if I add to that, but know that I care about you all, and I care about the school a great deal. And so along the lines of risk, Keith and I had just a little offline there during the recess, and I think I understand where it goes with policy 5253, that it's sort of tied in with the risk pool of the ESD, makes total sense. I just think kind of being someone who has worked a little bit in risk management as a CPA and always trying to control risk, married to Angela for a long time, who was, I think, kind of, you know, I'm biased, but kind of a brilliant risk manager. And one of the things that she was so brilliant at is that she knew the rules and wanted to follow the rules, but she would find a way to make things work. And I think that's one thing that, you know, like if we just look at TCIA and how we kind of solved some of the problems in the schools, because we found, like, she found a way and got creative. And I just believe that this thing that I'm raising tonight, 5253, is something that's changing. And I think you hear some of the subtext and some of the comments tonight. There's a lot of conflict underlying that and concerns. And so I just think that as that is communicated to the ESD, I hope that it's really communicate in a way that's like, this is what we would like to achieve as a board. We would like to have some more flexibility in that policy because of the nature of the community that we live in. And we want to find a solution. And often working in that world, I find that risk people, the easy answer is like, we need to be cautious, we need to be careful. And we do. And we're talking about very important things here with our students. But I also think creative thinking and trying to find flexible approaches is appropriate. And so I hope that we do that when we talk to ESD on this policy. And moreover, I guess if I may just add to that, you know, I was able to listen to the last board meeting here this last week. And one of the things I was pleased to hear along the lines of risk. So we talked about two things with PCIA. One was the importance of our partner district, which has always been a very key thing, that we have to keep a strong relationship with them. And more generally, PCIA is so critical to the health and the foundation of Mill A. It has completely changed what's possible with the district. And it lends to the second risk that I also heard talked about, and I was very pleased, Bob, to hear that we talked about the separation between understanding what is happening in Mill A school and what is happening in PCIA, and the separation between those budgets. I think it's super important to understand what the strength that PCIA brings to Mill A school in terms of its long-term stability financially. So critical. So I'm very glad we're talking about it. The third thing that I think is important, if you go back to some of the initial documents that Angela worked, she actually had a whole risk factor document with respect to PCIA and talked about the different risks that were there. Those were certainly two of them. And a third one that I know that Angela worried about a lot was our instructors. You know, our innovation within PCIA is being able to teach college in the high school. That is truly unique in our state. And it's important that we have the right set of instructors to be able to do that and to be able to meet the terms and the requirements of our innovation. And so that is sort of as an aside, one of the things that's been difficult for me to understanding that I don't understand all the background of what's happened with respect to Mr. Van Duzer, but I know that he has been one of the foundational instructors that was here at the beginning of the program and has been very well respected by all the staff and the students, and has built, I think, quite exceptional relationships with our students. So it just pains me to see that something like this has happened, and I accept that I don't understand it all, but it goes back to that risk that PCIA is so important to the health of Mill A school, and I think those are a few risks. I'm glad to hear we're talking about some of them. I would just remind that I think the instructors that we've put together here is another important one. So to add to the plate of risks and things to think about, but I do think those are important things.
Great, thank you very much. Very well spoken. Anyone else?
I heard the word sustainability a few times tonight, and I'm just thinking about the efforts that have been mentioned to remediate the low academics, like summer school and or tutoring, and I think both of those are great. I completely support any initiative to make tutoring happen, especially if there's volunteers willing to do it. I just think it's worth acknowledging that those are remedial and not preventative. And I would just like us to explore, I would like the school to explore how do we plan to prevent needing that in the future? Because it is a Band-Aid measure. And unfortunately, frankly, it can't solve the problem. 3 weeks of part-time summer school can't solve the problem for these children. And I just want to say that for some of these kids, that is make or break. We have children living in poverty who, if they are not coming out of fifth grade, if they're coming out of fifth grade at a second grade, third grade level, that may be the end of the road for that child. And I have one child in mind, and I love her. She is like a sister to me. And we cannot let that happen. So I'm just saying again, how does the school plan to respond to what's going on? I'm not asking for an answer, of course, right now, but hear me loud and clear. Something must be done.
So, do you guys have some suggestions that we don't think of? We'd be glad to hear them too.
I'd like to know what improvement plans will be put in place to support the academics. But it feels like an obvious bottom line. Or starting point rather.
And I think in order to get that, it's data and analytics, which should be available, and maybe just in the, since we have a short period of time, maybe we don't go back and find clear over here, but let's say 3 years. What does that look like? Okay, yes, we had COVID, but if we were to compare the, you know, the, all three, what does that look like? Just some data and analytics, like those numbers aren't going to lie. And it seems like that's really the only way to start in order to see if there is a pattern. That if there is any graph that could be created to show, give a visual representation of what's happening. I also, what I didn't mention before, I think that's important, is up until 5 days ago, I had no idea that there were concerns on an academic level for 3 through 5. It was not on my radar, but it was known. Why did I not know that? Why wasn't it shared? So then when I had my experience this last year, and I know I have a child who's teachable, who's willing to learn, but not learning, it's not her, but then I start just saying, well, I start sharing, and then the community starts speaking up, and all of a sudden, we're all realizing that just now, that this is a concern, but what's disheartening is I had no idea this has been a conversation here. I was just gonna go to the administrator and say, I don't understand what's happening. But the fact that it's been a conversation, like, we only have so much time, right? And even if I choose to take my children and go find a space that will support them where they need to be in order to get them the education, like River will catch up. I'm not worried about that. I'll get her what she needs for that. There's resources available. I'll participate in those if we're here. But what about the kids that parents aren't here? Those parents that Erica is speaking to, that's not their fault. And so, again, I just want to put that on the radar, finding a solution that there has to be, like, there's a root cause. There's an analysis that should be able to be done, especially in our tech society. There are reports that should be accessible to a certain extent, data that can be crunched. And you would think that it's going to show something. So just that, having a primary focus rather than being really broad, I think is also important. So I just make that suggestion.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes.
I think what, no one wants to say and no one wants to do the blaming, but the concern is obviously the teacher. And we're asking for, you know, if data is coming out of other classrooms and doing well, and then in this particular classroom is not, how does this teacher need support? How can we support her? Is she the right person for the job?
No.
Thank you. It is a difficult situation because of the small school. The information presented to the board is by elementary school. We have not seen it by class, and we have not seen it by classroom. So we hear from you, and we are doing everything we can to give the support to the superintendent to address the issue. Any more comments?
Just have one more thought about tutoring after school. Again, I support it because, we need something quickly. And children, at 2:30, when their day is done, they have a right to be done. And they're tired and they ought to play and they ought to be with their family and friends, doing, you know, playing with their dog, doing chores, whatever. They have a right to be done with academics. They already have so many hours in the school building. So what can we offer them during the day?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay, any more comments? Thank you very much. So, board, we have some action items ahead of us. Two things. We have an agenda. There's no way we're going to complete tonight. And we have to make sure that we know where we're moving ahead. Bob's going to be working hard to try to come up with a plan. He's going to be letting us know what's going on with plans for addressing the needs of our low achieving students for the remainder of the year. And then the board has a policy that we want to further discuss. And I've actually already made a call to ESD, and we will have someone either at the next meeting or prior to that to help us work through this particular policy 5253. The other thing next on the agenda was titled board training. There are several things, obligations the board has that's part of the budget process, as well as other things. One, we haven't done any strategic planning, goal setting, setting any retreats or workshops for several years. And we need to do that, and that should be combined with, we have to do a board self-assessment. We have to do a superintendent evaluation. And so there are those things that are on the agenda under 9, board training, and 10, board follow-up. If anyone has any ideas, I'm suggesting we try to attempt to at least put together a plan on each of those at our May 6th meeting, which is currently scheduled as a budget workshop, as well as a short training on board docs, how to use the WASDA board docs access. Does the board have any comments or objections to taking 9 and 10, picking them up on May 6th, and we won't be able to do all of them, but at least we can address a plan. What are we going to do first? Are we going to do a board assessment? Are we going to start the superintendent evaluation? We need to plan some type of workshop and goal setting activity that includes the whole different members of the whole school. So is that okay with everyone? Anyone, no one objects to? Okay, so item 9 and item 10, we will bring up at the May 6th meeting, Bob,
Yeah,
and then.
I mean,
on
effectively,
item-
for the minutes, you just indicating they'll be tabled to the May 6th meeting?
Yes.
Yeah.
Then on item 11, we have the first reading of several policies. Due to time constraint, does anyone have any objection to doing the discussion on the second reading of those policies rather than at the third reading? I mean, at the first reading tonight?
No.
Diane, how do you feel about that? Okay. Okay. And then on item 12, this is the second reading of the distribution of information policy, which has been significantly rewritten. Again, could we address that at the next meeting where it'll be under the approval line? Is that right, Bob?
It would be.
Has anyone read that policy? Do you have significant comments? We can do that at the meeting, even though it's on the line to be approved. We can still discuss it and make changes before we approve it.
In the May regular meeting?
I think that could go to the next regular meeting along with the policy review. First reading will go to second reading. So 11 and 12 would be at our regular May meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So there's one thing I wanted to ask, I was invited to go visit classrooms. And you said I had to approve it before it's board?
All I did is do you wanna bring this up?
It's important. I think we probably should. I
Yeah.
didn't have a note on it. He personally just wants to go learn, so it does
Is
not
this-
require board action.
Right. I was simply just pointing out the policy that exists for board members and how board members interact with the school, with the superintendent, and that's what policy 1620 is about. And so that's why it's one of the things that we were gonna discuss that Anita just asked to be tabled the next meeting.
But he can still visit a classroom. There's no action that has to happen. All he can sit in on a classroom anytime.
Well,
He's not sitting in as.
the board has established a policy for board members in the past. I just pointed out, just follow that policy.
Well, if the board,
So-
if the board wants a board member to sit in, then the board needs to vote and approve that. But he's not sitting in as a board. He's sitting as an individual.
But he's still a board member.
Well, that doesn't, he's not
Okay,
going
can I
as a
have
board member.
permission to go through this class?
I'm not saying, I wasn't saying yes or no, Bill, I'm saying,
Well, I
This-
got the
these-
impression
this
you're
is-
telling me I had to get it approved.
And anybody
I
can sit in
shared
as a
with the board, this is the policy. The policy for the board, this is what's been established.
Okay, so I just,
Sharing.
I moved to let him go. What, have a second?
I'll second. Been moved and seconded that Bill Onthang be allowed to visit school classrooms as a board member representing the board. Anyone have any further discussion?
Okay, I thought you just said he wasn't going as a board member.
Well, no, but he is a board.
Well, yes, he is, but you
So
can.
we
you can
just
still
asked
be-
if we can approve it.
So,
Can we
so
just-
this way we would just approve, and then it's
Yeah, but-
as a board member.
I understand, but I'm just saying, is that just not something any of us can do then?
It is something any of us
So
can
if
do.
we don't need to individually approve it.
Anyone out
Yeah.
here could go sit in the classroom
yeah.
anytime. All you have to do is let Bob know so that he knows in advance you're coming.
Does this disagree with that policy?
I think, do you know the policy number?
It's 1620.
1620.
It's 1620. So,
Yeah, it's in here.
and that's why I shared it.
Why don't you read the first paragraph of 1620? You know, I have it somewhere.
The successful operation of the school requires a close, effective working relationship between the board and the superintendent. The relationship must be one of trust, goodwill, and candor. As the legally designated governing body, the board maintains final authority within the district. The board exercises powers expressly required and implied by law. The superintendent is the board's professional advisor, to whom the board delegates executive responsibility, including such powers required to manage the district in a manner consistent with board policy and state and federal law.
I don't think that's a policy we're looking for.
So Keith was reading the policy, the next page
Yeah.
addresses just
So
visits to schools.
That's what
There's
we're-
something
Yeah, and the visitors.
addressing visits to schools.
Yeah,
So I
individual board members interested in visiting school or classrooms will make arrangements for visitations through the principal of the various schools. Such visits shall be regarded as expressions of interest in school affairs and not as inspections or visits for supervisory or administrative purposes. Official visits by board members will be carried on only under board authorization and with the full knowledge of staff, including the superintendent, principal, and other supervisors.
Okay, so Bill's not going officially.
He's not going, he just wants to visit the classroom, so this doesn't need to be something that's approved by us.
Right.
Is what okay.
So I'm sure I'm not following Robert's rules of order, but the motion can be withdrawn.
I withdraw mine.
Bills, you're free to go to the classroom at any time. All you have to do is let Bob know before you go.
Thank you.
Boy, I tell you,
Can I assume
I
that
think
then
it's late.
Bob would, because wouldn't that be something that if the teacher was having something special that day, that it wasn't a good day to go, that they should be?
Well, I think you have to sit in the back of the room. You can't talk. You
Yeah, but
can't interrupt or anything. You just sit there.
I see what she means.
I,
Wait, didn't it say I go and ask first?
yeah.
It says,
that's
it just
what-
says, make arrangements.
Yeah,
That's all it says.
so that's all you need.
Okay, is that gonna work?
I think so.
That's gonna work? Okay, let's go
Well,
on
that's the
to
policy.
the action items. Approval of the collective bargaining agreement. A copy was provided to us. I've given some comments, but it's already beyond the comment stage. So does anyone have any questions that they'd like to have clarified or understand anything about the document?
About what document?
The collective bargaining agreement? Okay, so I'll make a motion we approve. Okay, it's been moved to moved and seconded to accept, the collective bargaining agreement as negotiated and presented to us. There won't be any other changes to this document, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. So as presented to us, all in favor, is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the next one is the approval of the. And the next one is approval and submission of the emergency school waiver request, which we discussed earlier. Would the motion to approve would be entertained by the chair? Okay, Diane's moving to approve the emergency school closure waiver request. Is there a second? Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the emergency school closure waiver request. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay, so it's approved. Are there any questions before we adjourn the meeting? Our next meeting right now is scheduled for May 6th, and it will have a little bit of a lengthy agenda. It will include a budget workshop. It will include, board docs, and it will include, whatever I said earlier, it was going to include those two items back there, 9 and 10. Pardon?
Before you close, I do have.
Oh, sure, go right ahead.
Okay, so it's about taking minutes. So are we just gonna stick with the recording and then transcript?
So
How we doing minutes?
proposal is use of an AI tool to take the transcript that we have and convert to minutes. Minutes summary.
So that's a proposal?
Yep.
So he delegated to AI.
Okay, that works. So it's actually probably better than anything else, so.
So the one of the policies that was tabled was specific to minutes. So we can pick up that conversation next month, but
Right.
I think this is a pretty exciting use of some obviously incredibly powerful technology. Everyone is moving this direction.
Are we gonna get one that, it was suggested that we put it in the middle, on a table in the middle?
So is it right here?
That's it.
Yeah, no, but being put in the middle, it sees better, hears better.
Funny thing, we originally had this set up right there in the middle. And the cable is too short.
So we need a lot.
But this range easily reaches all the dimensions of this room.
So I guess while we're kind of on that subject, does everyone in the public, are you able to hear us when we talk? Okay, that's one of the important things. Okay, any other things good for the order? Hey, I say the meeting's adjourned.
Out.
Thank you guys very much.
Yep.
Y'all,
Yep.
I need your signature on this.